Welcome in, everybody, to the Triple Coverage Podcast on a new night here, Thursday nights, live at 7 p.m., brought to you by Monster Energy Drink, the official energy partner of Built in Buffalo. Appreciate y'all joining us here tonight as free agent frenzy has begun. Guys, Thursday night feels a little bit different. What's the most surprising thing that's happened so far over the last couple of days? Sup, Shoot?
Nothing much, nothing much. It's been a fun last couple days. I know some people upset, some people happy. It's been that time of the year where everybody's kind of going back and forth what they think. But it's been an interesting few days, especially for the Bills, especially just because of this type of moves. I think people are surprised by some of them, especially some of maybe more so on the offensive side than the defensive side a little bit more, but we'll get into that a little bit. But for me, I guess the most surprising move for me has to be so far the quarterback carousel you're kind of seeing around the league. I've been a little bit shocked about what Seattle did. I know we talked a little bit about that last week, and then but then bringing in Darnold, then Fields goes to the Jets, which we kind of also expected, but then the Steelers are kind of all over the place, don't know what they're doing. So right now, the way the quarterback carousel is kind of shaping up, it's just an interesting to see how some of these teams are going about it and how some of these teams are attacking it. So that'd be for me the most surprising thing. But yeah, still fun, still a lot left, a lot that will change, a lot of signings. I mean, we just had one that signed less than a half hour ago to the Bills, and we'll get into that. But yeah, just a lot of fun this past week, and it will continue for the next month or so.
Yeah, biggest surprise for me is this fancy new layout we have here. We're circles now. We're not squares. A little dark background. We're moving on up in the world. No, as far as free agency goes and Bills goes, I'm surprised we haven't seen an extension for either Benford or James Cook yet. We all thought that Benford would be kind of the first defensive guy they tried to extend, and he's been the last. They extended Rousseau, as we're going to talk about in a little bit. They extended Bernard. Cook, who knows what the plan is there, but I'm surprised we haven't seen an extension for either or both of them. I know Bean's not done. There's still some guys we can restructure. There's still money in the banana stand that they can go get. So I know we'll have a lot more answers in the coming weeks, but surprised that we haven't seen anything then around them.
Right. My biggest surprise, honestly, we talked a lot about, the players that were free agents last week and especially on the defensive side of the ball. And DeMar Hamlin was a topic. And we just kind of said, man, we thought that great story, great person, all this stuff, but it kind of seemed like things were trending towards him moving forward to, another place, and then they bring him back. So, pleasantly surprised to have him back on the roster. We'll see, what his role becomes. I'm sure he can help guys like Cole Bishop for sure, and we'll see what other guys he can kind of help as far as his experience in the defense, because he still has the most experience as a safety in this scheme. So he's definitely a valuable part of the defense from a mental side, but we'll see if what his role becomes as he enters his fifth year now with the Bills, and see where he goes. I guess if he sticks, I guess we're not even sure on the 1-year deal. Does he definitely make the team or not? Would assume if they re-sign that he's probably going to have a spot, but not guaranteed. Everyone's got to compete, right?
Yeah. Has the money for him come out? Yeah, 1 year, $2 million. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Was he guaranteed a lot? Do we know? Because that was the one thing I was curious about. Especially, I mean, 1 year, $2 million. I know a lot of people their first reaction was, "Oh, why is he back?" Not really too happy. This is another reminder of why we need to wait until all the contract details. Even when you see the initial number, just wait till the contract details come out before making a reaction here. Because to me, $2 million tells you, one, even if he does make this team, that's not starting money. That's if he does start, he's going to need to earn it, and he's going to need to really be in a competition for that second safety spot. You have Cole Bishop there. They do also bring in Derek Forrest, which I do like, especially for a competitive standpoint. So there's still a lot that they could do at safety. This doesn't lock them down. And like Lance said, who knows if this really does put him on the roster come week 1, if they end up trying to move on because they end up having somebody step up and somebody perform better in camp. But just another one of those reminders to just wait a little bit and just be patient. It's that time of year. And another one that I will just highlight that also reminded people to be patient was when Darrington Evans signed. That was another kind of one of those moments of like everybody thought Ty Johnson was gone. Everybody thought that they were just going to move on and that was it. And then a few hours later, Ty Johnson re-signs on a very, very good deal, in my opinion. 2 years, $5 million over those 2 years. So I'll just highlight those two as well with the running backs there. So it seems like the running back room is set, and unless something happens with Cook, who knows? There's, he's starting to get those cryptic posts online that people like to lose their mind over. So maybe who knows what will happen there? But the running back room, at least for now, seems set for 2025.
Yeah, I like what we got going on in the running back room. Bringing back Gilliam, Ty Johnson, Darrington Evans, all three of those guys. Again, Ty Johnson's probably obviously going to actually produce for this squad. He's done it, and very important on third downs past season. I don't see that necessarily changing. I think he still has a pretty good role here, and they gave him $5 million. I think that's going to be earned with some more third downs and some clutch plays. That guy always, what I say about him is he always falls forward. He's always going forward. He's never really pushed backwards and losing ground. So good move for Ty Johnson, in my opinion. Darrington Evans, like, they see something in him. They keep bringing him back every other year, in camp. And, we'll see what his ability is to stick this year or not. Not sure, but a lot of comments here. Laviska Shenault just signed, so haven't seen any sort of term, assuming potentially just a 1-year deal on a tryout basis to try to see what he can do to supplant Codrington as the return man, or what he can do on the offensive end. So, Scott, I guess you can pick the direction next. You want to comment on Shenault, the running backs, and then pick another guy to go over?
Sure, yeah. So just one thing I want to say, touch on what Ben mentioned, what he said, like the initial contract that comes out. Remember, that's what the agent is releasing, and they want it to sound as big and as most money as possible. Remember when it came out that Taysom Hill signed a 4-year, $140 million deal, and he didn't get any of that money? So yeah, whenever the initial number comes out, like, that's what the agent wants you to see. So it's generally not as it seems. Also, case in point, Von Miller signed him to, what was it, $120 million? I think we paid him $47 million. So not that bad. But yeah, excited about the running back room. Darrington Evans can return. I saw John mentioned it here in the comments, that going to compete with Codrington. I think Shenault also going to compete with Codrington for that spot as well. And like we were talking before the show, Codrington can return kicks, and he's good at it, but he cannot play corner at the NFL level. Shenault and Evans, at least if you have them on the roster as returners, you can put them out, either Evans at running back or Shenault at receiver. Like, they're a little bit more serviceable there. So maybe that's what they're thinking, not using a roster spot strictly for a returner, but obviously best man in camp is going to win that job. But I think that we go to free agent signings. The biggest name the Bills brought in was Joey Bosa. So that's a brand name right there. Coming off a lot of injuries, maybe not the same guy he was 2 or 3 years ago, but he's still just 29 years old, turns 30 in July. There's obviously concerns there with the injuries, and those are fair. But for a 1-year, $12.6 million deal, it's kind of a low risk, really high reward. If he comes in, as we saw in his press conference today, he seems really motivated. He wants to win. He kind of said without saying that, like, the culture in LA was a little bit different than he thinks that the culture he's going to have here in Buffalo, being in a football town where, the goal really is a championship. So maybe that kind of reignites him. And if he can stay healthy and be a double-digit sack guy, like, that's exactly what this team was missing.
Yeah, I do want to just touch on Shenault real quick, because you mentioned the returning, which I happen to just see actually from at Uber Hansen on Twitter. Don't know if anybody knows him, probably do. Very good content.
He gave me a shirt once.
Yeah, he pointed out that Shenault, even though he is a return specialist, he's never returned a punt ever in the NFL. So if he is a return guy, maybe he's probably done it in practices and during camps and everything, return punts, but in an NFL game has never returned a punt. So does that change now how people might view him? we'll see with what goes on there. If he does end up being in the competition for at least punt returner, that does change a lot as well. Like you said, with Evans back there, with Codrington, if Shenault can return punts, that kind of makes things tougher for Codrington and for Evans, because Shenault also, like you said, has that ability to be able to actually be on the football field if you need him to, as receiver. So just wanted to touch on that cool little note there from him. But yeah, Joey Bosa, this one shocked me. Actually, this one might have been the most shocking move for me. Hamlin definitely was up there as well. But, once they signed Hope, you thought, oh, okay, there's your D end. They might go in the draft again. We don't know exactly how much money they've been working with, but they had already signed Palmer to a deal, and I believe it was after. Was it after Larry? Oh, I'm gonna just call him Larry because I'm on
Ogunjobi.
It was before him. Okay,
it was the night before, yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, it's still, you sign those two guys and everything. You don't really know how much money they're working with. So for Bosa to all of a sudden come out of nowhere, because it seemed like it was between the Niners and the Dolphins that were in the race for him. And then it comes out that at last minute the Bills made the offer, and it's cool to see that these guys, even though the Bills were in last minute on a player, that they're willing to make a decision like that quickly about the Bills and say, hey, I want to come to this culture. And that's all you've been really hearing about the players that are coming here, is the culture, what it's like, what this building is like, what these players are like. Which is funny, just also because just the state of the Sabres, which are in the same city, the complete opposite cultures, but not to get off topic there. But yeah, it was a shocking one to me, but he can still produce, and it's all going to come down to being, if he can be healthy. He won't be asked to play 70% of the snaps, which I think will also help him. And even if he misses a few games throughout the season, the number one thing that is important is he going to be healthy in the playoffs? Because that's the time that matters. That's the time when it seems like the defense has been always getting injured. So it's always going to come down to the playoffs. He's a guy that can make big time plays. He's played against big time players. He was obviously in the same division as Patrick Mahomes, and he was able to play against him a lot. So yeah, I'm really excited to see Bosa. Hope he can stay healthy. He's still definitely got a lot left in the tank there. This is not, to me, like Von Miller, where Von Miller was 33 when he signed that contract, 30, maybe even 34-ish probably not 34, but 32, 33-ish, where Bosa's a little bit younger and still has more juice left. But that one definitely shocked me a little bit.
Yeah, the biggest thing I'm excited with Joey Bosa, not only his abilities on the field and the third down, the important third downs, I think he still has enough to really disrupt the offense and things like that. But it's another technique and another guy that Greg Rousseau can lean on in his pass rushing improvements. And we know, like, he's a great edge, from an edge standpoint, he's great in the run defense, but he's just not necessarily a terrorizing pass rusher. He had, again, we talk about it kind of every week, how he's had games where he's had 3 sacks and dominated, and then he's had games where, leaves a little to be desired. So I think that Bosa gives him another guy to lean on, another kind of mentor, or another person to go to for advice and different pass rushing moves. And Joey Bosa is probably more of a physical specimen, has more of the same tools that Rousseau can use, versus where Von Miller was very much more speed and bend around the edge, not so much, being physical with a guy. So hopefully Greg Rousseau also can benefit from this Joey Bosa signing. And that's one of the more exciting things to me. But yeah, Joey Bosa, I was my jaw hit the floor when we signed him. I immediately started to try to work up getting a post up to the Built-in Buffalo media pages. Scott and I went back and forth on different photos we were using, and was a good time. But we definitely got a good one in Joey Bosa. We obviously have to hope that he stays healthy, but he said he's already mentioning today, as he just got done talking to the media a little while ago, that he's working already with the trainers to get in there and see how he can work out and how he can rehab different things and just get in with the training staff to make sure that he stays as healthy as he can this year. I joked with some people on Twitter and said they already put him preemptively on the injury report. So just to get him there, and we'll see. We see if he can make it through camp without any big nicks or bruises, and then, see where he goes from there. You do hope that, nothing pops up in camp and kind of nags along the full season, because we do only have him for 1 year. So one of those things with the risk of this is that the 1 year, if he picks up something nagging right in the beginning, like that just kind of hurts for the whole season. But if he can be near full health when we get to the playoffs, so whether he plays a ton in the regular season or not, pretty irrelevant to me, assuming the Bills continue their trajectory and make the playoffs again, which I think we're all expecting to happen. Bosa in the playoffs is really where I think it's going to, earn that $12 million.
Yeah, I do also want to say it was funny when the way I found out, I was just sitting there and I got a notification on my phone. Nothing else was said, and it was just Scott in the chat just says Joey Bosa. That's it. Doesn't say anything else. Just says the name.
What more do you need?
I was like, okay, what did he sign here? What is he? Are they pursuing him? And then turns out they ended up signing him. But I do want to talk a little bit before we go on to like the next little topic here is about the D tackles position and what they've done there. One, I want to talk about Daquan Jones still being on the roster, because I think a lot of people may have expected him to be cut just due to one, age and what he did last year. So what do you guys think about the D tackle and what they've done, and what do you think they should be doing moving forward? I know, Scott, you talked a little bit about it before the show, so I'll have you go first.
Yeah, Larry Ogunjobi, they brought in. He showed a lot of flashes a couple years ago with the Browns. He's a really good player, and then kind of got a little older, had a couple injuries, fell off a little bit. But I think he's a good rotational piece. I think $8 million a year is what we're paying him, which these days is what you pay for a rotational defensive line piece. So I think him and Daquan Jones at the D tackle position are fine. And then I think they're going to draft somebody. You would think, I think that first round pick probably goes to the defensive tackle position. There's that kid out of Michigan I know they've been linked to, and then a couple other guys. So I would imagine that they're not done yet. It's interesting. The only time I really remember with the Brandon Beane, organization going into the draft where they're like needing to draft a starter was when they got Kaiir Elam, and that obviously didn't work out. And they just traded him to the Cowboys this week for a couple of picks. So I would think they'll draft somebody, and then all three of those guys I think will rotate, with hopefully the guy they draft kind of, edging everybody else out and then winning that competition. He plays the majority of the snap. But yeah, he's a solid rotational guy. So now I think that with those two and then a guy in the draft, they should be set at the one technique spot.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what a Daquan Jones has left in the tank at the DT spot, but then also, how bringing in a guy like Ogunjobi can really help keep him even more. Like they did rotate in, but I think there's definitely a level that is that Ogunjobi can help keep when Daquan Jones is off the field that the other guys last year didn't necessarily keep. I mean, Austin Johnson was okay. I didn't hate anything that anybody did last year from the interior, other than like it wasn't, we didn't talk about them much, and I want to talk about them because I want them to be, more of a force. And so this all helps. Again, another thing to help Greg Rousseau in his game too. And he's already a really good run defender. So you put another guy next to him that's going to eat blocks and just makes him more effective. So I really like how they're building the roster too, to kind of help either guys across from Greg Rousseau rushing the passer, or guys interior that are going to help him, get more one-on-ones or see less double teams and things in the running games, especially. So I'm excited for Ogunjobi. Again, just a big dude that can eat some blocks on the interior, and I'm excited to see him do that. And then, the guy we haven't necessarily talked about, I guess, to round out the defensive line is Michael Hoyt. 3 years, $21 million with 13 guaranteed. More of a longer term deal for Hoyt. So it seems like he's going to help out here and be that rotational piece for a bit. And then it's like, what are we going to do with AJ Epinesa now? Does AJ Epinesa have to really work to earn a spot? What are your thoughts on how Hoyt's signing either impacts Epenesa or just the entire defensive line as a whole, Scott?
I like Hoyt a lot. I liked him with the Rams. He came in, he went to Brown, Ivy League guy. He's smart. The Bills have a good history with some Ivy League players like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Came in as a defensive tackle, weighed over 300 pounds. And then he dropped some weight. Now he's down closer to like 270, and he plays more on the outside. Last year with the Rams and their scheme was kind of like a 3-4 outside linebacker. They would even put him out on DK and get him in coverage, which I do not think is where the Bills are going to use him. But he's just kind of like a wrecking ball. Like, he can line up anywhere on the defensive line. He's strong. He's physical. And he may not have, like you talked about earlier, being bendy and getting around the edge like a Von Miller. He's not that, but he will run through the tackle, and he might not get home for the sack, but he's going to get the quarterback off his spot. And another thing I'm excited about with him is he's kind of a stand-up pass rusher. He can do that from the edge, or he can do that from the middle, which tells me that we're going to see something from the Bills' defensive line this year that we necessarily haven't in years past, and that's some creativity. The Bills come out most of the time with 4 down linemen, 2 defensive tackles, 2 defensive ends, and maybe they'll throw in a stunt or something, but that's what it is. They all kind of line up where they're supposed to be. With a Joey Bosa, with a Greg Rousseau, with Hope, with Ed Oliver, guys that Rousseau can line up inside, did it all the time in college. Joey Bosa can too. Oliver, he probably stays inside. Like, they can get creative with where they line these guys up and maybe stand some guys up on the line. Kind of, what Rex Ryan used to do. Like, you have a bunch of guys standing around the line of scrimmage. You don't know who's going to come and where they're going to come from. It's hell as an offensive lineman. If you don't know who you're going to block, you're screwed, because if the guy you think you're going to block doesn't come, then the other guy does. There's only so much you can do, and then next thing you know, the quarterback is on the ground. So I'm excited. He's a physical player. He can rush the passer, is good against the run, and they can use him in a lot of different spots, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Epenesa or Daquan Jones, if they're going to be post-June 1st releases, if either of them will be. Most likely, I would be shocked about A.J. Epenesa a little bit more, just because I do think they like him. They would save, though, $5 million by cutting him after June 1st. So if somebody's still out there that hasn't been signed yet, let's say it's corner or even D-tackled, whatever it is, and the Bills are interested, A.J. Epenesa could be a name that could be cut. Daquan Jones, you don't save as much. You only save about $1.5 million. So Daquan Jones, I do, before I thought that maybe they saved a little bit more, unless you trade him. But yeah, it doesn't seem like he would be an option. But A.J. Epenesa, he's a guy that kind of is on that weird trajectory right now for I think what they thought he was going to be and what they thought he could be. So yeah, definitely a chance there. Before I talk about Hoyt a little bit, I wanted to talk about the D tackles too, because I do like the signing of Ogunjobi, but for me, I don't love it. I will be honest there, but I like that. I wish that they would have gone elsewhere. I think, there were a lot of other guys out there that I really did like. One guy being Bobby Brown, who got less per year, does go over to Carolina, so maybe he wanted more of a chance to start and be there. But there are a lot of guys there that even did get less or about the same that I think you could have plugged in there. Even Sebastian Joseph was there. Onwuzurike from Detroit. I know he maybe wanted to stay in Detroit. But yeah, I mean, I will see what happens with him. But I thought that there were some names out there that they could have gone after around the same market with when it comes to terms. I do also want to.
And you really want Daquan Jones to play with Daquan Jones, didn't you?
Yeah.
There's a defensive tackle out there from Arizona, Daquan Jones.
And that's why I also want the Jordan Phillips to be drafted and still bring in Jordan Phillips, so we could have just as many. And then we have to trade for Josh Hines-Allen so we can just get as many people with the same name. But I mean, Poona Ford.
When we had all the Williamses. Yeah,
that's true.
Aaron,
yeah, 7
Mario,
or 8.
Aaron, Kyle. Yeah.
I do want to point out though, Poona Ford got paid $9.2 per year for 3 years, so that still will blow my mind of what happened when Buffalo with him. didn't work out. It was not really there for them. But I will say that to give the benefit of the doubt to Ogunjobi, he is coming from a different system than Buffalo. They run a 3-4 over there in Pittsburgh. Here they run that 4-3, and that maybe that switched in Cleveland when he had some better years. They run a 4-3 as well, so he did have a better fit maybe in the 4-3 defense. Pittsburgh might not have been his best fit there. So we'll see if that makes a big difference. But yeah, when it comes to Hoyt, this one is an interesting one. I hope everybody saw that clip of him guarding DK Metcalf in the slot there, which is always funny too. And just a guy at that size should not be able to at least stick with the guy like DK Metcalf makes the play. I doubt we'll see that a lot in Buffalo, although then again, we've also seen edge rushers drop off into pass coverage a lot when we haven't really wanted them to. But yeah, I'm excited. We got another Canadian guy, 2 Canadians. I believe it was Palmer today said how it seems like he's signing with a Canadian team, which I think for Bills fans is one of those things where it's kind of cool to see guys to say, oh, I'm basically feel like I'm signing with a hometown team, even though they're not a hometown team. So, yeah, two Canadians coming over. I like the signings. I think Hoyt, it's a low risk, just like Palmer. Both of them are low risk because all of these signings really that's what they are. They're low risk, which I like, which again kind of sets up for what are they going to do then if it doesn't work this year. They're going to have plenty to do next year, even if this doesn't work out this year, which I do like the signings this year. I do think they will work out. But yeah, it's one of those things where they're setting themselves up for this year, and they're not really taken away from other years. So I like them so far.
For sure. Just to kind of button up the defensive line and just mention it, Greg Rousseau was extended 4 years, $80 million with $54 million guaranteed. We talked a lot about it two shows ago, I guess, or last week's show, I guess, that we didn't necessarily think that Rousseau would get extended potentially, that they would take the Tremaine Edmonds approach with him. And, we didn't have a huge problem with it, but they obviously didn't think the same way. And it's interesting to know. I mean, their plan is that Greg Rousseau is going to be a big part of this team's success. And I guess the worry is that can he be consistent enough to get the Bills to where they need to go? Now they've made some more investments since they extended him. And I think, like I said, they built this defensive line around helping him have success as well. And not only bringing guys where he can, get ideas from and just get more experience with, but also guys that are going to take attention away from him and help him win or help him be one-on-one more where he can win, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I was shocked, one, that they did re-sign him this early, and two, at the number. I mean, I really like that number for Greg Rousseau. I know we were talking, but literally, I believe it was a day or two before they announced it, about what our range was of what we thought was a good number for Greg Rousseau. And I think we were most of us saying, well, do we want to get into that 25 plus range, which is what it seemed like this market for edge rushers are going. And just seeing the signings, obviously with Garrett, with Max Crosby, which Rousseau is not on that level, but he's a younger guy who still has the potential to reach new heights. Maybe not that level of Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, but still being able to get up there and being able to become a guy that can demand 25 plus. And to get him at 20 a year, it seems like it's a steal really for the Bills, because you already know that you're getting a elite run edge rusher, right? You're getting a guy that can play on the edge, that's elite run stopper. And the guy who gets the pressure just might not be able to get the sacks. So if you can get the sacks now and he can put it all together, I mean, that's a huge, huge piece to this defense that you've been missing. We've talked about, can he be that guy? Can he be the guy that other offenses look at and say, he scares us, we need to game plan around him? We've seen the potential of it, and we're going to see if he can potentially put it all together. And if he can, 20 per year is a steal, because even just looking at the other contracts that have come out for DNs, I mean, Sweat got 19 a year, Chase Young got 17 a year. To me, Greg Rousseau is already better overall than both of those guys, and they're getting just a little bit less than him. I mean, even Harold Landry got 14 and a half. So for me, it's I love this contract. It's phenomenal. In 54 million, let's say he doesn't live up to it and he ends up having an injury or something in year 2 or whatever, you can get out of it if you need to in the last year. So I really like it. I'm a huge fan of it. I love Groot. I did really, like I said, was shocked that they gave him the contract, and I'm shocked that he even agreed to it before free agency to say, hey, what if somebody did reset the market? What if somebody came over and said, what if Sweat goes out and gets 25 million? That changes a lot of things for a guy like Rousseau. So he ends up getting the deal done before free agency officially starts and the tampering period starts.
Well, he wouldn't have been a free agent until next year anyway.
Yeah, but I'm saying like he could have waited and seen, let's say Sweat gets 20 plus 25 plus million, or even he just says, well, I'm better than Sweat. Sweat's getting 19. I want significantly more than that because I believe that I can become better than that. So I was just a little shocked at that aspect that he signed beforehand to see, not even just to see, but hey, man, I love that contract, and I think it will age beautifully.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I know I was on the fence. I didn't think he was going to come back. I didn't think he was worth, much more than what he got, just because, like we talked about earlier, he's not the best pass rusher. He doesn't get the sacks. He's great against the run, but so was Shaq Lawson. I know he's a better player than Shaq Lawson, but yeah. So now that he's been paid, though, I would like to see him take that next step. Like, I think he has to be a double-digit sack guy to make this really, really worth it. Like, if we, over the next 4 years, is it worth paying a guy $20 million for 7-8 sacks, who's good against the run, who disappears in the playoffs? I don't think so. So would like to see him take that next step, and I think that he will. And especially if they keep adding guys to the D-line, it's only going to make his life easier. So excited to see what he does. Happy that he's back because he is a good player. And, with the cap keep going up, it's not that crazy of a number.
Yeah, definitely great value on that contract for Greg Rousseau. The other extension we haven't really touched on yet. We can go into that unless you want to go somewhere else, guys. But Josh Allen, 6 years, 330 mil with the most guaranteed money ever to a NFL player at 250 mil. That's expensive, but he's worth every single penny. So when you look at it, it'll be a great deal in the end because, like you said, contracts are going to still go up and salary cap's going to go up. So just give your thoughts when you saw the Josh extension. I'm sure all of us are ecstatic about having him here for the foreseeable future and now into 2030 as it stands.
Yeah, he deserved it. Good for him. Happy for him. It still felt like he left a little bit on the table. He probably could have gotten more. He's still not the highest paid quarterback or even particularly close to it as far as an APY goes. But yeah, really happy for him. He got paid. He deserved it. 2 more years onto what he was on for now. And, we're going to look in 2 or 3 more years and hopefully we're saying what we are now about his contract and that it's a steal. So good for him. The guy got paid and, happy he's here.
Yeah, they pretty much, ripped up those 4 years that he still had and just said, we're going to give you 6. And I think it also, one, it says a lot about Josh not demanding that, right? It says that he wants to win. It says he wants to be a Bill for as long as he can. He kind of even said it in his press conference, right? Just saying, like, what is $5 more million going to do? What's $10 more million going to do? He's already making so much money, not just from the NFL, from sponsorships and everything else.
He's got a rich wife.
Yeah, and his wife probably makes millions herself. So it's how much more money do both of them need? That's, to me, again, another sign of this is why you draft guys for certain teams, right? As the Bills, you're not going to draft a guy that's going to come in and say, no, I'm getting my money. I want to be big time. I want to be this. I want to be that. You get a guy who fits where you're playing. And Josh Allen just, I think, fits this city. And this proves it even more of just like, no, I love it here. It's a football culture here. They live and die. And I want to be here for as long as I can. So I love it. I do think it's just awesome in general to have a quarterback like Josh and be able to deal with it like the way that they deal with him. And I think it also sends a message to the rest of the league. And I saw a lot of people, a lot of analysts, a lot of just sports analysts in general around the entire sports world talking about this is how you do business. This is how you do it. You reward your top guys, and it does send a message to the rest of the players around the league. Players will see that and say, well, they could have waited 2 more years. They could have waited 3 more years, 2 more years. No, they're going to rip it up and they're going to pay their MVP and say, no, you're an important piece of this and you deserve this. So, yeah, I think it's awesome. And kudos to Brandon Beane as well for getting this done and being able to get it at a number where both the Bills and Josh Allen are happy.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add to that. I'm really glad he's here and going to be here for the foreseeable future. And it's way more fun being a Bills fan when Josh Allen's your quarterback than before he was our quarterback, and all the way back until Jim Kelly was our quarterback. So that's really what I got to say about it. Josh
Ben
Palmer,
and I don't remember that one, so that's more of a you thing.
Yeah, that is me. That's what got me hooked. I got brought in on a high, bought high, and then I had to go and go through the drought, and now we're back up, baby. So higher than ever. Maybe not. I guess 4 Super Bowls is maybe higher than what we've got right now, but let's get to one and go from there. So Josh Palmer signed from the Chargers, 3 years, 36 mil, 18 guaranteed. Just initial thoughts. I'll start with you, Shoop, this time, and just go through what you're thinking when Palmer signed and how much you think he can really help and be a weapon in the everybody eats offense.
Yeah, this one again, I was a little bit shocked at first because I was shocked that receiver was one of their first signings for the Bills. You didn't think receiver was a glaring need. You thought maybe they do go D-line, maybe they do go corner, but they go receiver, and Josh Palmer kind of fits what they're looking for, right? A guy that can play outside, a guy that can beat man coverage, still young, so still can improve, can be a bigger part here. And it's in a contract that is flexible. A guy that you can, if let's say he doesn't work out in 2 years, it didn't work and you can move on there. But for the Chargers, he was a guy that had games where he kind of wasn't doing anything. And then he had big games as well where he was the star for their receiving corps. So I think it fits this everybody eats because he can have some big games, and in the games that he might be off, Josh can look elsewhere and get other people involved. So I like it. I really do. I still would like a guy that's a little bit faster with some more speed there. But as long as he can get open, that's all that matters, right? That's what the number one thing that everybody wants in Buffalo is somebody that can get open, somebody that can get separation. And man, is he already the best separator on this team? Arguably, yes. There's obviously other guys, maybe Shakir might be there, but when it comes to outside boundary receivers, he is the best guy, and hopefully he can teach Keon a few things about getting separation as well. So we'll see. I like the signing. He was a reliable target for Justin Herbert for his time there, and for most of the time when you'd see him playing, he was catching the ball. So I like it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. The football nerds love Josh Palmer the same way they love Justin Fields, but I say this is a little bit more warranted. How good he is as a separator. He can get open. He can get open deep. Kind of one of those guys in the Chargers where, all of the analytical numbers were there, but the production necessarily wasn't. I think he had 1 year over 700 yards, the others like in the 5s. Different situation coming here to Buffalo, and I'm really excited for it. He's kind of what this team didn't have, a guy who could beat man coverage and get open against it consistently. He is the guy to do that. So I think he's going to be a really good fit. Contract's not crazy. That's about the going rate for a wide receiver 3 these days. So I'm really excited to see what he can do. I'm sure he's excited to play with Josh Allen, and I think he's kind of exactly what this offense needed.
Yeah, I was pretty excited. One of the guys early on, I think many people kind of identified him as a guy that could come in on a team-friendly deal to not break the bank, but be effective and serve a purpose. And I think one of my favorite things about some of these signings that I'm looking at is just, all right, what is their skill set and how do they help the other players around them? And like you mentioned, Ben, maybe help Keon Coleman learn a few things about separating, things like that. I mean, we got to get Stevie Johnson on at some point and see like, hey, Stevie, can you take Keon to the separation school there and see what what we can do. But I think Keon is going to be okay, and I think this just helps. Though you have guys around you that can do certain things, and you kind of hope you learn little tidbits and tricks to add into your game, and ultimately make that adjustment. So I'm pretty excited to bring in Josh Palmer and see, like, just have that element now that maybe if we had it, it didn't necessarily hit home as much last year. So we'll see how that works. But if you haven't done so yet, please like and share this on Facebook. If you're on X, go ahead and hit the repost button and like that. Head on over to the YouTube channel so we can get your comments here. If you're on YouTube, please like it and share it there as well. And keep bringing in the comments. The more comments we get and the likes we get, the better it is for the algorithm. So we greatly appreciate all the support, and hope you're enjoying us on the new night here. Same bad takes as Ben and Scott said earlier and last week. So we're still here, but we're going to go into a comment here. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, first one I'm going to bring up is about Von Miller here. Sandra saying she thinks Von Miller will be back with the Bills. This one, they already signed 2 edge rushers here, but still, I think it's a position where people still are a little bit cautious about talking about. They're still curious to see how this position goes. So I do just want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Personally, I'm just going to say mine quick. I don't think he'll be back. I just think it's very rare to cut somebody, especially after probably months of talking about what's going to happen. Can they make it work? Can they bring his cap hit down? So it's one of those things where I don't think he'll end up being back with the Bills just because of that. I think they've already discussed what will happen. And I think, it's one of those things where, do you want to then kind of not go backwards, but just go with the same route you already went? So I don't think he'll be back. But what do you guys think, Lance? We'll start with you.
To a front office role, maybe he comes back and
hopefully not
continues his GM aspirations under Brandon Beane's staff. But as a defensive end edge rusher, I don't believe that the Bills will have him in that role moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think so either. They have 5 guys, the 2 you mentioned, and then Groot's back, Epinesa, and then Javon Solomon, who I think they like a lot. Showed some flashes last season. I don't know the exact stat. A better podcaster would have looked it up, but I would have to imagine his sacks per snaps played has to be towards the top of the league last season. So yeah, I don't think he'll be back. I would imagine it's the 5 that they got now. Probably draft somebody early-ish, and then they'll roll with 5 or 6. Can't really keep many more than that. They have 5 now. There's room for 1 more, and I don't think that guy is Von Miller.
Yeah. I mean, who knows though? Maybe he will be back. We'll see. But it seems unlikely as of now. Next, I do want to just talk about areas of need, right? Brandon Beane's already filled some spots. It's very rare that Brandon Beane goes into the draft with a glaring need at a position. I want to talk about specifically one position right now. And the first one I'm going to talk about is just cornerback. That right now probably is the only position you look at on this team and say, wow, that's a glaring need. You need that corner too. You don't really have anybody there. You have Rasul Douglas, who's still a free agent. Who knows if they're still in contact with him. Another name that's been kind of thrown around there is Asante Samuel Jr. He, I believe, was visiting the Cardinals today. So who knows with him? He's another guy that his name's obviously been thrown around a lot. Still a younger guy, but there are a lot of corners out there still that could potentially be, the guy that I mentioned a few weeks ago, Jeff Okudah is still out there. Stephon Gilmore, former Bill, obviously is still out there. Some older guys there. So we'll start with Asante Samuel Jr. Scott, do you think, 1, it's a possibility, and 2, do you think it would be a good idea for him to join Buffalo?
I don't think so, honestly. I don't know if he fits the scheme all that well. I know he's solid. He puts up good numbers, but he doesn't like to tackle. Corners in this Bills system have to tackle. And I know you say, oh, they're a cornerback. Like, don't let them catch it. They don't have to tackle them. LOL. But, our Bills cornerbacks need to tackle against the run. Like, the fact they only play with 2 linebackers and then Taron Johnson, who's essentially a linebacker, how well he is tackling against the run. Like, our corners need to get active. Like, I used the example in our group chat the other day in the Ravens game in week 4 that Derrick Henry long run on the first play of the game. That was Rasul Douglas's job to fill that hole, and you can see it on film. He just made a business decision and said no thank you, and I can't say I blame him. But the Bills ask their corners to do a lot against the run, and I don't know if Asante Samuel is willing and able to do that. So because of that, like I don't think he'd be a big fit, and I don't know if he'd be that. I don't know if he'd be that interested in us either.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was a detriment to the Bills last year was getting off the field on third downs. And usually on those third downs, a lot of teams were throwing the ball. So if he can cover a guy, I'm okay with it. But I do understand and agree with the point that Scott makes as far as, needing this defense absolutely needs you to tackle, and it wears down some DBs. And I'm not sure that there were so many inconsistencies with that. I think some DBs are willing to at certain times, and other times they're like making business decisions. And like that Derrick Henry 87-yard run against the Bills in Week 4, nobody really seemed interested at that point during that play to get in front of that guy. So we'll see, how it works out. I'm a little bit indifferent. I think it would be a little bit exciting at the idea of getting an Asante Samuel Jr., but I'm not like pounding the table for the guy either. I kind of like the idea of bringing Rasul Douglas back to the Bills more than signing Asante Samuel. Like I really think that would be the wise deal. I think they want to wait it out and let Rasul try to get as many offers as he can, and then hopefully the Bills offer to him if they're making him one, which I assume they will. I really hope that they are able to get him back and on their terms, because ultimately that's what Beane's going to do this offseason is he's going to wait guys out. He's probably got offers on the table to some of these guys that we don't know about yet. And then, when they're waiting to try to finalize deals with other people, if those things fall through, they may have the Bills to lean on as far as that goes, especially at the cornerback position. I think other positions now, I think the Bills have made their moves and maybe won't bring them back, like Amari Cooper at wide receiver. I'm not sure that there's still an offer on the table for him at this point with the guys they've brought in, but I wouldn't be opposed to that either. If they are able to get him back, that would be nice. But yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. Asante Samuel Jr., though, back to that is exciting idea. Definitely would help the pass defense. If they think it's a good enough idea to bring him in, I'd be on board, but I just don't think it's going to ultimately materialize.
Yeah, I there was a name that I'm kind of with you, Lance. I wouldn't mind it in the slightest. I would definitely still be excited to see him. But there are other names that I think might fit better and might be a little bit better. I do think even just bringing back Rasul is better. And I know that he hasn't had much success in the NFL, but I'm still a fan of trying out Jeff Okudah. I just think, he had injuries to start his career. He's a guy that was a high draft pick, and coming into a system where cornerbacks seem to just play better and kind of get their careers in a good spot. I mean, you've seen guys leave Buffalo and then all of a sudden they're not the same corner as they were here in Buffalo. So Sean McDermott does have a tendency to be able to turn corners' careers around. So I would be very interested to see if he's out there. I don't know if you guys, before we go on to the next position, if you guys do have any other names you want to throw out there. Obviously, I threw out Stephon Gilmore as well. James Bradbury is still available, so who was another name. And then we had, where's the comment? Roy brought up Kendall Fuller as well. He's another name. Those are some veterans out there. I mean, would you rather have them bring in a veteran on a smaller deal, on a 1-year deal, or would you rather have them go a route of maybe giving Okudah a 2 or 3 year deal that's a low risk, or bringing in somebody that's a little bit cheaper? I mean, there's still Shaquille Griffin as well. I mean, there's a lot of names out here. So, Lance, is there anybody that you really think kind of is out there that beside the names that we've already named that you'd be interested in, or even a name that we have mentioned that you didn't really get to touch on?
I think I'm just going to say the name out loud for the sake of saying it. And I'm not saying we need to bring him back, but I'm just saying Trey White is a free agent, and it would be an amazing story just to have him back.
Do you want to play goalie for the Sabres?
Maybe. But great dude, and obviously probably isn't a good fit for the team on the field wise, but would be super cool if he, if they got him at a super cheap deal and he's able to give us anything. Just would be nostalgia, and some people could break out their jerseys again. Having just lost my Dylan Cousins jersey, now I just feel for people who have those jerseys, and actually I have a Trey White jersey myself, I think, so would be nice. But I don't have a. I did want Melifonwu, a former Syracuse corner. He's gone now, so I don't really have a big list of another guy that I would take a look at. But
another name I'll throw out there as well is Noah Igbenogany. I completely butchered that, but
definitely didn't say that right.
Yeah, definitely didn't say that right. But hey, like I always say, I'm not good at pronouncing names, so I'll own up to it. But he's another guy that just speed was his. That was his whole thing coming into the draft. Right, it was a first-round draft pick by Miami. Hasn't really turned out to be that great. He was in Washington last year, so there's another name I'll just throw out there as well, for you.
Yeah, ultimately at corner, I'm looking to draft somebody. So it's like, who's going to be a bridge, or like you mentioned, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal max. But, any of these guys might be okay. But ultimately, I think you do have to spend a pretty decent draft pick to try to get someone in to fill that spot at this point. If you're not going to bring back Douglas, someone's got to be cornerback too. And like you mentioned, plenty of the guys that could fill that spot. I don't have another one outside of them. I just think that ultimately it's going to be a draft pick in a year or two that ends up manning that spot across from Benford.
Yeah, I think they'll bring in a vet. I would hope. I don't know who that is. Maybe Rasul Douglas. Like, he wasn't the best corner in the world last season, so I can't imagine his market is much more than 1 year deals at places. And like, if he's going to take one of those, why not do it here? But I don't know. Like, I don't know if they bring him back, they would guarantee him a starting spot. Probably, but I'm not sure. Obviously, Benford has one corner locked down. The other one, I'd like to see them bring in a vet. Who it is, I don't know. But yeah, I definitely think they'll, unless something crazy happens, there'll be an early draft pick spent on a corner, and then that vet and the rookie can kind of battle it out and see who wins the job. And hopefully it's the rookie, and we have 2 lockdown corners for the foreseeable future, assuming they re-sign Benford. But yeah, I'd like to see them bring in a vet. It's rare, like you mentioned, Ben, that we go into a draft having a glaring hole. And right now, cornerback 2 is a glaring hole. I guess it would be either Cam Lewis or Jamarcus Ingram. And Ingram, hey, week 2, AFC Defensive Player of the Week. People forget. But I think he's more better in the slot than he is on the outside. They like his versatility, but I don't think as an every down corner.
Yeah, there were some names, I think, corner-wise that the Bills, I'm shocked, weren't more all over. I mean, Christian Fulton obviously went to KC there, so he was a name that I know a lot of people wanted as well. But I do see Levi Wallace as well. We're going to not entertain that option, because if anybody wants to know what Levi
Dane
Wallace
Jackson's available too.
Dane Jackson, I'd take Dane Jackson over Levi Wallace in a heartbeat. If you look, he was on Denver last year, Levi Wallace. If you just look at what Denver's numbers were when he was actually on the team playing, I believe they were bottom 3 in the league when it came to pass defense when he was actually playing cornerback 2 for them, because I know Riley Moss went down for a little bit. And I know that it was a joke. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that in the chat, that I do know you guys were just joking around. But Levi Wallace is not going to be the solution there for cornerback 2. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys. I do think they'll end up signing somebody soon. I do also agree, though, and I hope it's more of a veteran guy. And even if, when I say veteran, I do think of Jeff Okudah as a guy that is a veteran. He's been in the league for a few years, and he's a guy that's been through a lot. So I do think that he could be a guy that comes in. So we'll see what they end up doing there. I do want to talk about then receiver. Go back to receiver. We talked about Josh Palmer a little bit. We're bringing up this comment from Joey here. Is Shavers going to get an opportunity? Should we just trade him? I don't think there'd be much of a market for Shavers. I know that his average is phenomenal.
If you can get anything for him, take it.
Yeah, if you can't get anything for him, take it. But I'm not sure. I think you'll need a little bit more than just that one play for him to get a market. I do think he'll get an opportunity, but I do think that they should try to bring somebody in. I'm just going to talk first about receivers here. I would also be a fan of drafting somebody, although I've talked about this with a couple people. I'm not a huge fan of drafting a receiver in the first 2 rounds. I'd be fine with it. I'd be excited. I wouldn't be mad about it. But I hope that they go defense first three picks over receiver, just because I don't see it as that much of a need. Do you really want to bring in a guy in the first 2 rounds? They might get 1 to 3 targets a game and be a guy that's part of that everybody eats. Is it going to be worth it when you can get a guy on defense that might be a little bit more impact, especially if somebody goes down? But there's a lot of names out there, a lot of them. I know Cooper Kupp's been thrown around. Obviously, everybody knows about that picture of him with the Bills in the Bills gear. Stephon Diggs, probably not going to happen. But you have Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper still there, like Lance mentioned, Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods. There's a lot of veterans out there that I think you can bring in and at a cheap price and still be a guy that can be that rotation and be in there just in case somebody gets hurt and be a guy that can be a difference maker for this offense. So for me, I think that you just wait and see who ends up staying in free agency for the next month or so and bring somebody in on a cheap 1-year deal. So what do you guys think about receivers? Obviously, we have the 4 that people are talking about, but is it still a big need to you guys? Scott, we'll start with you.
Yeah, the receiving room is not complete by any means. We got the 4 who are for sure 100% on the team: Keon, Shakir, Curtis Samuel. I'm putting him in there for now. There's talks of him being released or traded. I don't see that happening. I think he came on the end of the season, played well. I think he has a role in this offense. I don't think he was healthy last year, so would like to see more from him. And then, the new guy, our Canadian friend, Josh Palmer. So we need other people unless they're going to go in with Shavers or Hamler or Virgil as that 5th and 6th receiver. So I think they draft somebody. Possibly earlier than later, because I think they want somebody who will come in and make an impact. And then, maybe a flyer on a vet. That could be a Chenault if he comes and balls out in camp. But I know we're thinking he's probably more of a kick returner. But, there's a lot of guys out there who I think would be serviceable for 1-year deal, something like that. I don't think they sign anybody else to a multi-year deal unless something crazy happens and falls into our lap. But maybe even like Amari Cooper, like his market, not crazy. If he get it, I know this might sound crazy, but if he wants to come back here on like a $7-8 million deal, like I think that'd be great. Like another guy, he's probably only getting smaller year deals. Like, hey, if the Titans are going to give you 10, but the Bills are going to give you 8, like, do you care about winning as much as he said he did when you were here? Like maybe he takes that. So I see them bringing in a vet and then probably drafting a guy, and then maybe this is the year they carry 6 receivers instead of 5.
Yeah, I love the idea of Matt Golden or Tez Johnson in the draft as to name a
Isaiah
few.
Bond, something like that. Yeah.
To name a couple of receivers. Yeah. But, I'm just excited at the opportunity they still have to bring back Amari Cooper. I haven't really given up on him as a possibility yet. And I'm excited. I would be excited that he would be able to add to this receiver room with the moves they've just made with Palmer and Chenault. And what, Keon in year 2 and things like that. I just think he brings a nice, a nice skill set to the receiver room that would be useful. But I definitely think you got to draft one, and I'm split on that, Ben, as far as, and we'll get into this another show probably, but as far as like how early do you take one and what other needs are there, I definitely think, trying to get a guy like Kenneth Grant or somebody early on in the draft is certainly a priority for this team. It would fit the need a little bit better, but it's all, any of these guys that you're going to get at these positions outside of cornerback and maybe, another safety. I don't really know if you're drafting a safety super early now with the moves you made. I don't think it prevents you from doing so, but you do have Rapp and then you have Cole Bishop there. So how early do you want to take one? But, I wouldn't mind drafting a stud edge rusher if they can get one in the first round, but what other positions are there really to have early on? So if you do go and get yourself a playmaker on offense, that's not the worst thing.
Yeah. I see. Like I said, I wouldn't be upset necessarily at an early round wide receiver. It's just, for me, I was talking with somebody earlier today about, they were saying, well, why would we take 2 corners in the first 3 picks? Or why would we take another edge or even 2 D tackles? And for me, year after year, we always, what's usually the thing we are mad at by the end of the year? It's usually the defense. It's never really the offense that's the problem at the end of the year. And a lot of it is usually due to health and used to guys going down. This past year, Christian Menford went down. What was the plan at corner? Kyrie Elam had to come in. And the 2 years prior to that, it was just the defense in general was falling apart with injuries. So for me, personally, I'd rather take a receiver a little bit later, or even trade up into the 3rd round again and take a receiver. I'm a big fan of Ty Felton, just getting a speedy guy that you can get. But yeah, I mean, if you go get a Matt Golden in the 1st round, it's hard to be, upset about that exactly, because he does look like he's going to be a freak in this league. But personally, I think receiver isn't that glaring of a need, especially just due to the type of offense that we play. I think you can get a guy in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, whether it's trading up into the 3rd or whatever it is. You think you can get a guy that can come in and be impactful if you need him to be. But I just would rather go defense heavily in the first 3 rounds, just because, again, injuries happen. It seems like every year the Bills defense falls apart with injuries, or somebody goes down that's important. And right now, like you said, what is cornerback? What is the plan at cornerback? Obviously things will change in the next month, but it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be a big topic of is receiver going to be something that we look at in the first 3 picks for the Bills in the first 2 rounds. So I think receiver is going to be interesting. I am a fan, though, of bringing somebody in for when it comes to signings. Yeah, it's just one of those things where we'll see what goes on with receivers. But before we move on to the last kind of topic here, did you guys have any other positions you wanted to highlight as of now? I know there's not really too much that we haven't gone over. We've gone over edge rushers, D tackles, pretty much everything. So is there any other major ones that you guys want to go over before we go into the last topic here?
Only thing I can think is maybe a 3rd tight end. Quentin Morris, haven't brought him back yet. Have to think that's maybe going to happen. I can't see him having a huge market out there, to be honest. So do they sign somebody? Do they draft somebody late? Or do they roll with Zach Davidson? Third tight end is kind of the only other spot on the roster that you're like, oh, that's still a question mark. Everything else is still pretty much preset.
And punter. We'll see about punter too.
They have
Jake Camarda.
They have a converted quarterback in Armani Rogers, so they could bring in Felipe Franks, another guy who played quarterback in college, and
works with Logan Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. So
John does bring up Zach Davis as well.
Yep, Zavison's here, so he fits that role. I don't know if they're going to want anybody that's more of Quentin Morris was more of a pass catcher than really an inline blocker as well. So, Zach Davidson fits that role as well. But they got Irv Smith out there. Wouldn't hate that. But, you're not going to bring in a guy like that probably to sit behind Knox and Kincaid. So not really sure what to do with that there. Yeah, and then there's not a ton. Corner and a good young edge to try to have someone become like a superstar at the edge position is really what this team needs. So that's really it's really CB and edge for me.
If you want to, by the way, tight end, if we want to bring in some experience, we could bring in about to be 41-year-old Mercedes Lewis if we want. A little block in there, get a little bit better with there. But tight end, we'll see what goes on there. But going into the last topic here, I do just want to highlight the AFC East. The AFC East has kind of had a weird offseason so far with the Dolphins not really making big splashes, and the Jets go get a quarterback and make some sizable splashes. I know they got a guy that Lance really wanted, which he might bring up. And then the Patriots, man, they had $150 million to spend, and they got to spending pretty quickly. So I'm going to ask you guys which signing or which team in general kind of is the team that you want to talk about just real quick. Which signing for any of those guys? Lance, we'll start with you. Which team or signing really is the signing that you look at and say, man, I hate that we're going to have to play this guy twice?
Well, the Jets took Andre Cisco, Syracuse guy. The Dolphins took Melifonwu, a Syracuse guy. Those two were guys I was looking at. And then obviously Mac Hollins going to the Patriots was the biggest surprise to me. Really thought we had a good chance to get him back in Buffalo. Thought he deserved, thought he had a great role in Buffalo and that he could, play a good part in this team again if they brought him back. And, he moved on and I'm not sure what the offer scenario was there with Mac Hollins, but we got to meet him out at the Big Tree Inn, as we've said probably 1,000 times on the show now. And no, it was cool. He just was a cool dude, and just I thought he was as good off the field for this team as he could be on the field. And I think that's a shame that he isn't back.
Yeah, I don't say any of the moves the teams in the AFC East have made have really moved the needle a ton. The Patriots were super active, but you have to remember the teams that are the most active in free agency are generally the worst teams. Like, look at the two teams you'd say have been the most active, the Bears and the Patriots, two of the worst teams in the NFL. Good teams are not made through free agency. In free agency, you're overpaying for players that if they were perfect players, they wouldn't hit free agency. Their teams would have re-signed them. You can get good players that way, but you're not going to fix your team through free agency. So when people get frustrated that the Bills aren't making a lot of moves in free agency, it's like, well, the Bills don't have a lot of holes to fill, and free agency is not the best way to do it. Good teams are built through the draft and then developing your own talent. So I wouldn't say any of the moves really moved the needle that much. I mean, the Patriots spent a lot of money because they had to. Are they going to be much better next year? Maybe a little, but they're not. I don't think they're a playoff team. One guy, AFC East killer, Buffalo Bills killer, Zach Wilson is back in the AFC East. He's with the Dolphins. So, if Tua gets hurt, when Tua gets hurt, maybe we'll get to see our old friend Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I know Dolphins fans aren't exactly too happy with what they've been doing, which I do think they have some, all right signings there. I mean, Tyrod Dodson is a solid player for them. I mean, he'll be a guy that can be a rotational at linebacker. I do want to just touch on Justin Fields here. I know I saw Andrew's not a huge fan of it here he's a huge fan of it in terms of the Bills, but doesn't think it'll be good for the Jets. I do think actually I am a fan of Justin Fields. I think that in Pittsburgh he showed he can be a guy that won't turn the ball over, can kind of be a playmaker for them. We already know what he can do with his legs, but I think in Pittsburgh he showed he can take care of the football. And they didn't really give him a chance to open up the playbook. They didn't really say, oh, we're going to really open it up for you and go crazy. So I do think the Jets will still be the Jets. They're the Jets. Let's be real. They're not going to push for the playoffs. I do think Justin Fields will be a guy that will make them a team that you can't just roll over, right? You can't just say, oh, they're going to be this team that we can go in and crush them. They're still going to have a solid defense. They brought in a defensive coach now for their head coach, and it's all going to depend on that offense there. Andre Cisco was another guy that I thought Lance was going to really go heavily into. I know that you wanted him, another Syracuse guy. If the Bills were all Syracuse and UB, I think Lance would be very happy with that. But yeah, I mean, that Cisco was another guy that we highlighted even during the trade deadline of, is he a guy that the Bills go out and get? Goes to the Jets on a 1-year deal. But yeah, the Patriots, very active, probably going to end up trading Joe Milton now just because they did bring in Josh Dobbs. But I will say the Patriots, even though their offense, they still got a lot of work to do on that offense. Their defense, I think their defense is going to be scary. I really do. I mean, Mike Vrabel's a heck of a coach, and I just think what they've done, I really like Robert Spillane. I do think, yes, they may have overpaid for Milton Williams and Harold Landry just because Milton Williams played, 47% of the snaps, I believe, in Philly, and you're going to give him 20.
And he was next to Jalen Carter.
Yeah, and that defense in general was just an amazing defense. So while I do think he'll be good, $26 million is a lot of money. But I do think they ended up doing some pretty good stuff there on the defensive side, but they still have a lot of work to do on the offensive side. But overall, I think this kind of makes it now a three-way push for who's going to come in second for the AFC East. I just none of these teams really, again, make it where it's like, oh, they're going to be a team that pushes for the title here in AFC East. I think the Dolphins, I don't know what they're doing. That's like I said, I just really have no idea what they're doing. It doesn't really look like they're in it for this year. I mean, they brought back, I think, another offensive lineman outside of James Daniels today, which I'm blanking on his name. And all I know is Dolphins fans were not happy about it. And they were calling for Chris Greer to be fired today. So that's how it's going in Miami. But overall, AFC East, we'll see who ends up coming in second, third, fourth now. But yeah, we'll see what happens with them. But just want to highlight everybody, all the new signings there. And yeah, we'll see what goes on there.
I think the Bills are going to have like 5 interceptions total against Justin Fields this year.
If he throws the ball that many times.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gonna have to.
I've always been a Justin Fields truther. I think that he is better than people think.
What is the truth about him?
I think he's a serviceable quarterback. He's not going to be a quarterback that's going to lead you to the Super Bowl or anything, but he's a guy that kind of reminds me of, huh?
He's a bridge guy.
Yeah, look, he won't lead the Jets to the
Plays
playoffs,
bridge
but
a
he
lot.
won't. I don't think the Jets will be a team that, like I said, I don't think they'll finish last in the division. I think they have an opportunity to be better than the Dolphins. I really do. The Dolphins to me are right now having the worst offseason of the AFC East, and
yeah, they don't have much money. A lot of their money is tied up in their big four guys. So, and they don't really seem like they're restructured contracts because I don't know if they're built in that way to do that. So yeah, I don't really think they have the money to do anything. Justin Fields is so weird to me. Like I agree with you. I think he's better than people give him credit for. He's a hell of an athlete. If he can figure out how to throw the football a little bit better, a little bit more accurately, he could be good. But he went from the Bears to the Steelers, played 6 games, looked okay, got benched for Russell Wilson, who is not a good quarterback in my opinion, and his stock went up. It makes no sense to me, but here we are. He's another guy like Josh Palmer I mentioned earlier. The football nerds love him, but when you put on the tape and watch him actually play, it's not great.
I think part of it, the reason why he actually went up is a lot of people did feel, I think, that he should have stayed starter in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh even now, Pittsburgh is catching a lot of slack for how they've handled this whole quarterback thing the past 2 years. I mean, Mike Tomlin, I know a lot of Steelers fans that are just ready to give Mike Tomlin the boot and say, please, we need something that's not going to be just mediocre. It seems like that's what they're striving for, is just mediocrity and going that 9-8 or 8-9, whatever it is. So, and I was one of those people. I thought benching Fields for, especially, what were they, 4-2 in his 6 starts? They had a winning record. Yeah. The offense didn't look amazing, but it looked all right, and they weren't even doing that much. So, like I said, if they would have opened the playbook up and maybe trusted him a little more, I would have liked to see that. And I think the Jets will see what he can do. I mean, we'll see if he can end up opening it up and being a little bit better. But it blew my mind because Russell Wilson, like you said, he's not a good quarterback. I mean, he's deciding between the Browns and the Steelers. You might as well it's a sign there, Russ. You should probably just hang him up and say, oh, we're done here, because it's not, your career is not what you were, and you're not the same guy that you were.
I do not think Mike Tomlin is a bad coach. I think he's a really, really good coach. So I think they'd be really dumb if they let go of him. And I don't think we're not a Steelers show, so I don't know as much about them, but
I do understand where Steelers fans are coming from, where it does seem like he doesn't take the offense as serious as he does the defense, because it's since Roethlisberger retired, it's really been kind of a joke with what they've done at quarterback. They haven't taken it serious, and this year they had money to make moves, and I think that's a contract the Steelers should have given to Justin Fields. Said, hey, be our quarterback this year. Let's see what you got, but it's we'll see what ends up going there, and just to bring up John Snow's question here, which team would take Mike Tomlin? I think almost every team in the NFL would take him. I know Miami definitely would. Teams that are on that brink of being able to be great teams and needing that extra little push. I mean, look. Yes, he's messed up. Like I just said, he's messed up the quarterback situation for the past few years. But
he's not the GM.
Yeah, but when you've been there that long, you know that you have a say in what's going on, and you definitely have a say. You definitely are in the conversations of starting Russell Wilson.
Here's my thing with Tomlin. He's such a good coach that even when they have a bad roster, they're not a bad team. So they can't be bad enough to get another quarterback. Like, they're in that purgatory. Like, with Mike Tomlin as your coach, you're never going to be bad. So you're never going to draft high. So if you want to reset and get a good quarterback and be a bad team, I guess you could get rid of him. Otherwise, you have to trade for somebody or get lucky in free agency. As we know, good quarterbacks don't go to free agency. So he's such a good coach that they won't be bad enough to draft somebody. Like, as long as you have him, you're going to win games. And I know mediocrity is what they've been, but the fact that with the rosters that they have and the offenses that they have, that they're that good, that just tells you what a damn good football coach he is. I think I'm a big Tomlin fan. Yeah, and if he got fired, I think in the middle of the season, he would have a job before the season ended. Like
will
someone would
say-
just be like, "Hey, you're not our coach anymore. You're coming in."
Yeah, I
If
think
Pittsburgh-
that's kind of what we're in with McDermott too. People are just like, oh, he can't get the big game, but he's like good enough to like keep getting him there and keep getting him to, divisional round appearances, championship game appearances. So like these guys are good coaches, but yeah, they're limited in certain ways. So what Tomlin probably with some of his roster construction right now is limited, and McDermott I don't think is limited. I think there's just guys that like we haven't made the plays when we had the chance, and that just happens sometimes, and it's unfortunate, and you'd like it to be different, but I don't think it's necessarily coach's fault. So like I just think like the coaching thing is so interesting because these guys are super good at what they do and almost like to their detriment at times in Tomlin's case right now.
Here's the only issue I think I understand where Steelers fans are coming from. I really do. And just to bring up here, how long ago did Tomlin win the Super Bowl? It was 2008. So this was middle of the drought for the Bills. To put it in perspective, what was that? 16 years ago that he won a Super Bowl. I get why they're
never been below 500.
Yeah, but the past 7 years, 9-6-1. Don't make the playoffs. 8-8 don't make the playoffs. 12-4 lost in the wild card round. 9-7-1 lost in the wild card round. 9-8 missed the playoffs. 10-7 lost wild card. I mean, the difference between Sean McDermott and Mike Tomlin right now, the past 7-8 years, is we've actually won playoff games, and they've won playoff games though.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he's a better coach than Sean McDermott. I never said that. I just said I think he's a really good football coach who, like, the reason that those teams have those records is because of Mike Tomlin. If they had a different coach in there, they would be much worse than that. Like, he's getting the most out of those guys. Look at some of the characters he's had to deal with. Like, Antonio Brown played there relatively normally. And the second he leaves, he's the craziest person on earth. He was keeping all that in-house. Like Le'Veon Bell too, all normally. The second he leaves, he's like, I think he's a really good coach. Like, it may be time for a reset there. Like, maybe they've lost the message, but he would not be unemployed for long.
Oh yeah, and he'll get a job. But the other issue is again, 4 of the last 6 years they've had a negative point differential by the end of the season. So you've had that record of being above 500. But what does it feel like to these fans? To these fans, it feels like, again, just another season of let's go 9-8. Let's just squeak into the playoffs. And then they know, I mean, everybody's known they've been getting bounced. Even that 12-4 year when they lost in the first round, everybody knew that they were frauds that year. Everybody knew it.
Agreed. But they need to make a big swing at quarterback. And
that's needed to. I mean, if they get Rodgers, I'll say that. If they get Rodgers, I think Rodgers is a good fit for them. They have two guys that can be deep threats. They have two good wide receivers. I think Rodgers still has some left in the tank. I know people might disagree on that and say, oh, Rodgers is washed. But
still sling it.
Yeah, especially he came off an Achilles injury and towards the end of the year really started to play better. I just think the past few years they've really messed up at quarterback. I mean, you've had Roethlisberger, who the last few years of his career was atrocious. Mason Rudolph started 1 year. Kenny Pickett was a bad miss, and then this past year with Wilson and Fields, I think it was a mess up when you just benched him for Wilson. I think starting Wilson. So, yeah, I get why Steelers fans would want to move on, but at the same time, that's a big gamble to all of a sudden say we're going to bring somebody in and it's going to turn around and they're going to take it more seriously when it comes to quarterback or whatever, because we've seen it time and time again. That's the same way with the Bills. We've talked about with the Bills. If they get rid of Sean McDermott, that's a huge risk because then what happens? You still have Josh Allen. You'll still be a top team, good team, but will you be that team that is consistently winning 1 to 2 playoff games every year? That's the big question. And so Tomlin would get another job, but it is also a good point that not this what comment. There we go. Belichick couldn't find a job somehow.
Belichick's much older than Tomlin too, so it's like
he's
longevity.
And Belichick also really messed up the Patriots when it came to everything internally, because that 1 year where they made big splashes, that might have been one of the worst free agents classes I've ever seen. And
I don't think Belichick's comparable. He's 40 years older. Everybody hated him. He wanted complete control and autonomy of everything. Like, that's why the Falcons didn't hire him, because the GM in the front office knew all of them would be out of jobs. So, like, he just kind of, like, outwore his welcome in the NFL. Tomlin is still, 45, if that. Like, he still has a lot of good years left. Everybody loves him. Like, guys really like him.
52.
Is he? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
They did
in my head,
they
it's
did a
still
thing with head coaches over 50. There's only like 8 of them right now, and Tomlin was one.
wow.
Isn't
He's
there
an
a
old head in
GM
the
that
league.
just is like
Yeah.
34?
Yeah, 34. And I'm going to say something. I don't think this is the real Jon Snow.
We'll never know. We'll never know. All right. Well, we
Winter's
kind of got
not coming
off a little
anymore.
bit there. We were
Winter's
talking about
gone.
the AFC East, and I don't know if do you guys have anything else to add? I know we kind of got off the little bit topic there.
Yeah. Those are kind of the fun things, and that's why we encourage everybody to comment. We love getting comments, and sometimes we'll take them and run and just talk about it, because it's what we're here to do, is talk and engage with you folks. And also we love to talk football, not only Bills but anything else as well. And we're going to mainly focus on the Bills for the majority of the time, but this head coaching discussion is very, very interesting. So good on you, John, for getting all the guys fired up and getting us going here. It was a great time. But yeah, unfortunately, it is about an hour and 20 in now. So that's all we have for this show here. Greatly appreciate all the viewers here coming over to Thursday night from our Friday nights that we had been on. And again, please like and share on all the platforms, repost if you're on X, and go over to YouTube and subscribe to that YouTube channel if you can. And really be able to hit the notification button to get notifications when we go live. So we really appreciate everyone, and especially Jon Snow out there. So go Bills, and we'll see you guys next week. Again, we're going to start jumping into the draft here a little bit, and we'll talk about how LaQuint Allen's a good fit from Syracuse to fill James Cook's role eventually, and all that kind of fun stuff. So a little heater there to head out of here, and we'll see you guys next week.